The EVAP system for the Gen 2s consists of a fuel cap, fuel filler neck, fuel tank, tank O-ring, vapor canister, vent valve, purge valve, and all connecting lines and hoses. A P0440 is a large leak. A small leak would say a P0442. The most common culprit that causes a P0440 is a loose fuel cap. Check your fuel cap. Sometimes the inner gasket gets all crusty. If it's not the fuel cap, any of these components could be leaking. So where do we even begin? One thing to know is the purge valve, the one sitting on top of the engine, that one is normally closed. The vent valve, the one under the car, is normally open. Since the purge valve is normally closed, we can begin testing in that direction. Let's get to it. I like to begin diagnostics at the canister. We're going to check the line that goes to the purge valve. At the canister, the thick line right here goes to the vent valve. The middle one goes to the purge valve. And this corner one comes from the fuel tank. To disconnect them, I just squeeze the life out of them and they come out. I connected a piece of 5/16 hose to the connection that goes to the purge valve. Since the purge valve is normally closed, it should hold vacuum, right? Let's find out. It holds vacuum. This section is good. The canister has been brought down, super easy to remove. These plugs came with the MIDIVAC kit and they came in handy. The canister is holding vacuum and I had to pump this like 30 times to achieve that small amount of vacuum. But it's holding. That saves about 140 because these are not cheap. Let's continue troubleshooting. Instead of running a vacuum test through those ports, you can also run a smoke test. I did a smoke test and I found no leaks. Now I'm running a smoke test through the gas filler neck, and guess what? There's a bunch of smoke coming from the top of the gas tank. To further diagnose, I'm gonna have to drop that tank. Dang. The leak has been found. So I'm smoke testing from right here. And you can clearly see smoke coming out of the top of the fuel tank. Smoke is also coming out of that middle hose, but that's to be expected. Let's see what we find inside. Now that it's open, I can see exactly what happened. They didn't want to include the gasket. Instead, they tried to use gasket maker. And that's not gonna work. That'll definitely throw a P0440. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna add a gasket and then I'm gonna re-smoke test. But I think adding the gasket should take care of the issue. The gasket is in and no smoke is coming from the top of the tank. Only from that expected hose, that middle hose. See that? There was a trick to putting in the new gasket. A lot of people like to put the gasket on top of the little rim, but you're gonna have a hard time fitting it that way. What I did is set the gasket on the fuel pump, smothered it with Vaseline, and then hit it with the hammer. And it sat in beautifully. We're gonna put this tank back in the van and take it from there. It's been over a week and the EVAP code has not returned. When I put everything back together, I smoke tested the vehicle from various points and found no leaks. Stick around to see how the purge valve and vent valve are bench tested. So you don't have a bidirectional scan tool? No problem. You can use a 12-volt battery to test the purge valve and vent valve. The purge valve is normally closed, so using a vacuum gauge, we're gonna add vacuum to it and it should hold for at least 5 minutes. It's holding. I got this connector from the junkyard. Red to power. And as soon as it gets ground, it should open and relieve all vacuum. This purge valve is working correctly. Now we do the same thing to the vent valve. I'm gonna use the same connector. And the vent valve is ready to be tested. This is 3/8" hose. This is 5/16. Everything sealed tightly. The connectors are already hooked up to battery positive, and now we're going to give it ground. And as soon as it gets ground, as soon as the circuit is complete with the fuse jumper, this should close because it's normally open. Now the vent valve is closed and it should hold vacuum. And it's holding vacuum. As soon as I open the circuit, as soon as I remove the ground, that vacuum should escape. And there it is. This vent valve is working properly.